7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2.
Well, how's everyone doing today? This is Bob Gums bringing you the Concerned Forum. And I hope that you folks are going to be ready to enjoy a very, very hot weekend. Today is Thursday, and I can tell you, the weather is brutal out there. It's extremely hot. So you folks, especially you folks that know your physical condition, your health condition, etc. Please, if you have to go out, take care of yourselves because it is extremely hot out there. And right now in the United States, the problem that we've been having with heat stroke, it is a serious problem in this country because the climate change that Donald Trump and the Republicans swear that God doesn't exist, it's killing people left and right, not just in the United States, but around the world. So please, if you have to go out, for God's sake, be careful. Now, upon other things, you know, there's nothing wrong with people being afraid. Fear is natural when you're in a tight situation, when you're concerned about something. But it's what you do with that fear. That is what you have to take a look at. And, excuse me. God, I needed that. It's incredibly hot. It's warm in here, which is not good for the equipment, as you probably know. But as I was saying, this fear, I never thought I would live to see a time in America where you have grown men and women. And to be honest about it, to be frank about it, I mean, hey, I'm old school. I am learning, but I'm old school. And I'm one of those millions of guys that grew up with the idea that certain things were expected out of a man, out of a decent man. A decent man is a gentleman, okay, first and foremost. And when it comes to questions of right and wrong, a real man, he stands his ground and he says, hey, I'm not doing this because this is wrong. Or I am doing this because this is the right thing to do. And I never thought I would see the time when you have so many, especially talking about the Republican Party. And yeah, I talk about them like dogs because they deserve it, right? If I see you chewing on bones and barking, I'm going to assume that you're a dog. And when I see people, grown men, groveling, when they really don't have to, I'm going to assume that you're some kind of cowardly punk, quite frankly. And like I said, it's not because of the fact that you're afraid, but what I see you doing with that fear. That is a sad thing. Sergeant, I believe his last name is Sergeant Goodell, Dominican American brother. He did a couple of tours in Afghanistan, and then he came back to good old US of A, and he decided that he wanted to be a Capitol Hill policeman. And so for several years, that's exactly what he did. He worked as a cop on, Capitol Hill, the nation's heartbeat, I would say. And he was there on January 6th, that day. And what happened when the mob that Donald Trump pre-ordered and launched as an attack upon the Capitol, Mr. Gonell was one of the people, excuse me, he was one of the police officers who almost lost his life protecting not just Democratic Congresspeople, but Democratic and Republican representatives. And it's a sad story, but it's a great story because I am so impressed as a fellow veteran. I am so impressed at the courage that Sergeant Gonell has displayed, and that's the silver lining in a very dark cloud. And the mob, and these are the same people now. This is what really ticks me off, among other things. That mob was made up of the same, who you had there, right-wing wingnuts, Republicans, serious conservatives, or I would say creepy conservatives, all, your right wing, talking about law and order, Black Lives Matter, it's just a hangout for the thugs and ghetto thieves and what have you. That's the kind of stuff that these people say. Well, he was pretty well beaten, almost with an inch of his life. And for him professionally, the worst thing is that his shoulders, right? Well, his shoulders were basically ripped up so badly that he was talking about that on television this morning. His doctor was basically just about crying to see a brave man essentially lose his career because he can no longer be a law enforcement. He can no longer work in law enforcement because of the injuries that he sustained on Capitol Hill that day. He basically, put it this way, he lost a phase, a part of his life. Because, as I said, he can no longer be a cop. He can't be a cop on Capitol Hill. He couldn't be a cop now at Mayberry RFD because of the fact that he stepped up to the plate to defend the folks that work there in Capitol Hill, not just the representatives and senators, but also the staff people, right? I know I was in '86. I was a staffer myself, right there in Capitol Hill, and I know what this gentleman did. And he risked his life to do his job, and because of that, his livelihood is gone. The thing that he did every day, he can no longer do it because he was physically torn apart. Now, I know that you have some of you right-wing thugs out there. I can see you smiling because you think that that's a good thing. You think that this man who risked his life for his country twice, well, what did he do? I think he did, 2 tours. So that's 2 tours in Afghanistan, and he worked for 7 or 8 years as a Capitol Hill police officer. So that's at least 3 times that he put his life in jeopardy for this country. And hey, folks, he's one of those immigrants that the Republicans like to talk about like they're dogs. which also pisses me off. That's where my grandfather came from, Dominican Republic, on my dad's side. But yeah, look at what this immigrant did. Look what the little immigrant boy did. The people people like that clown senator from Arkansas, Hawley, whatever the hell his name is. No, Hawley's the clown from Missouri. But he's in that same club. Brown immigrants and Tucker, that creep. Tucker on Fox. I got some things to say about Fox, but I'll hold off on that for right now. But yeah, Sergeant Gunnell is one of the people that they love to denigrate. And I'm not even going to go with Donald Trump, and what he has said about brown people, him and his boy Tucker, right? But yet, this immigrant, this naturalized American, when it was time for people to stand up and stand up, he was there. He wasn't, he's not a politician, right? He is not trying to run for office, although I think down the road he should, because we need people like that in government. But he just did his job, and his job was just like in the military, just like they teach us. You guard your post. That's your post. You guard it. And that's what he did. He guarded his post, and it cost him his livelihood, and damn near cost him his life. Here's the kicker, right? If this doesn't burn your butt, I don't know what the hell does. You know how many Republicans passed by and say, hey, look, Sarge, way to go, brother. Thanks a lot. I appreciate you looking out for us, for all of us. You know how many Republicans, out of all those clown Republicans on the Hill, you know how many of them stopped by and told the man that they were grateful for his sacrifice and thanked him? You know how many? 2. The 2 Republicans on the January 6th committee. Yeah, Cheney and, that other one, former Air Force officer, right? Those are the only 2 Republicans that, thanked the man for his courage. I'm sure down the road that between Ms. Cheney and the other gentleman, I'm quite the gentleman from Illinois. I'm quite sure that some things will be worked out, not just for Sergeant Gunnell, but for all those Capitol Hill officers that sacrificed themselves for the sake of all of the people that work there on Capitol Hill. Because, look, let's get it correct now. We're not talking about, this guy, he saved a lot of Democrats, he saved Pelosi and blah, blah, blah. That's what the Capitol Hill cops did. No. They were there to safeguard the lives and property of everybody that worked on the Hill. Everybody that had business there, that had legal authorized business that day, that January 6th. That's what all of those cops did. Now, Sergeant Gunnell, he just happens to be one example of the courage that most of those guards displayed that day. And, I find it so wacky that none of the Republicans ever, a thank you? What's the senator from Florida? That kid. I always call him that kid because that's exactly not only what he looks like, that's exactly how he sounds. The gentleman, I believe he's a Cuban immigrant, right? Now, Cuban American. But you mean to tell me that even this senator, an immigrant, like Sergeant Gonell, except the sergeant is from Dominican Republic, and the senator, uh, his folks and himself, they're Cubans originally. And you mean to tell me that he wouldn't even, hey, mi amigo, listen, thank you, brother. Thank you for saving our lives. And this kid from Florida, a United States senator, whose life was saved because of the sacrifices of Sergeant Gonell and those other Capitol Hill police officers. Thank you. Would that have been too much? Would that have been giving, were they giving in to the liberals? I can't say thank you to the guy that, basically threw away his career in the process of saving our lives. And you can't even give the man a thank you? Is that how corrosive the Republican Party has become to the United States? That it's like we have no sense of up and down. In the last 15 years, this Republican Party, it's a danger to the United States of America. It's a clear and present danger. Look at the type of people that they have put on the Supreme Court. Frauds and liars. Because if you're a liar, that means you're also a fraud. And I hope that, I know everybody calls her AOC. I like to say Congresswoman Cortez. But AOC it works out well too, because it displays a certain amount of toughness. And I am so glad anytime I see a Democrat that's tough, right, that has intestinal fortitude. That really, I'll be honest about it, that's a real turnaround for me. But I have to be careful now. Some people have accused the Democrats of being too cowardly. When you sit down and think about it, the only real cowards in the room are the Republicans. When you're too scared to publicly thank the guy that saved your life, him and his comrades, him and his companions saved your life, and you are too afraid to publicly say thank you, yeah, man, you are a coward. And I'm saying that with a few exceptions. I think maybe altogether you have about maybe 10 to 12 Republicans, both in the House and in the Senate. Both of those branches combined, right? Both of those legislative branches combined. So what do you got? You got about 48, 49 Republicans in the Senate, a few hundred there in the House. You only have about 12 that are worth more than a bucket of warm spit. I would say worth more than something else, but we're not going to go there right now. But yeah, they, with the exception of those 12, and my figure might be too high. We already know 2. They're on the committee. And then, like I said, besides them, I say you have somewhere between 8 and 10 that are worth it damn. And as far as the rest of them are concerned, well, they're a bunch of cowards. And I say this publicly, and I mean exactly what I say. You're cowards. You won't stand up to your own constituents. And damn it, you don't have the intestinal fortitude, you don't have the damn integrity to tell your followers, hey, listen, guys, you are going places I don't believe this country needs to go. And I'm not down with that. And you are so afraid to do that. And that's what makes you a coward. I mean, you can talk all the crap that you want about Pelosi. And yeah, Nancy pisses me off plenty of times also, right? But I will say that she has a pair. I give her credit for that. She has a pair. Republicans nowadays, you're a bunch of gutless wonders. Maybe you can find some half-blind elderly grandmother that you can beat up and kick out in the street, all right? Because basically that's all you're good for. You don't give a damn about the American people. And you only give a damn about your constituents in so much as, and see, that's something else. Bad mistake on your part. You don't let people know that you're afraid of them. And you folks, you Republicans in Congress, you basically have flashed a bat signal. Hey, constituents, y'all scare the hell out of me. So any crazy thing that you want me to say and do, I'll do it. Or any crazy thing that you want to do or say, I'll sit there and quietly keep my mouth shut. And that way, nobody will know publicly that I think that you are an ignorant jerk. If you were a real man or woman, you would tell your constituents, hey, listen, you're out to lunch. Here goes, and here's why, A, B, and C, right? If you were a leader, see? But you're not leaders. You're a bunch of cowards, and you don't do a damn thing for the working people in this country. Yeah, everybody talking about, Trump, he did some great things, but this is something that really blows my mind, man. What in the hell did Donald Trump do that was so damn wonderful for middle class working Americans? I'm waiting. I've been waiting for 2 years for somebody to tell me just what the hell it was that this guy did that was so damn super. And I'll tell you straight up, Donald Trump didn't do a damn thing for working class white people. The only thing that he did for working class white people was basically constantly keep repeating to them, hey, you're cool because you're a white guy. Other than that, I'm waiting for somebody to show me what cities has he helped to rebuild. Okay? How many jobs did he put out there? In other words, what did he do? Now, somebody tried to say, oh, well, he's the one that came up, what do they call it, warp speed, about getting the COVID serum and all that good stuff, getting that started. Well, if somebody could explain to me, what is the good of bringing out the damn COVID vaccine? Well, what vaccine? What COVID? I say that because people seem to forget. Donald was the one that said that there was no such emergency. Remember? Donald was the one that said, oh, well, this is just a hoax on the part of, was it Soros? The guy, when he wants to be quietly anti-Semitic, Trump and the other Republicans, they always bring up Ted Soros, right? But Trump is the one that said it was phony. Soros and the Democrats concocted this whole thing. And, it's amazing to me here in America in the 21st century, people, we have video. We have tape. This is not 1890. You can't say things in the public forum And what, you think? In other words, Trump and the Republicans, they believe that white working class people are so stupid that they, y'all won't think, well, wait a minute, the guy's saying this now, but 6 months ago he said that. I mean, come on, people. I mean, really. And see, this is the thing that I have a real difficult time seeing what's happening to our country. Because it's like, oh, well, you can't trust that guy over there because he has critical or she has critical thinking skills. Well, guess what? That's something that we're supposed to have. That's a capacity the good Lord, gave us that he expects us to use. See, that's the thing about these evangelicals who are also a danger to our democracy. Because, I don't know, God, the Creator, and I don't give a damn what church you go to or if you go to church at all, but the Creator gave us these things. He gave us critical thinking skills. And I believe that he expects for us to use them. But the weird thing is that with the Republican Party of today, it's like, oh, well, we can't have that book out in schools because it talks about critical thinking. I thought that's what the hell schools were for. So you're supposed to help you develop your critical thinking skills. Not to try to teach you what to think, but to teach you how to think. And now that's frowned. I mean, for example, there's no way in hell I would have young children and living in a place like Texas or Florida. There's just no way. Because they might as well start, like you used to get the little gold star on your first papers and whatnot that you had to write out. Well, in Florida, you get a gold star for showing no capacity to be able to think. And I'm not trying to be funny. Actually, it's kind of scary because I guess we're going to be burning books next. And we can't allow this nation to get there. Excuse me. But see, that's one of the things about this country. You have these people that, oh, well, the Democrats are soft on crime. The Democrats are soft on crime. Look at the cities and blah, 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 blah. Well, what the hell does that have to do with being soft on crime? See, I think the fact that a president of the United States felt that it was okay for him to unleash a lynch mob to kill the vice president of the United States and basically any representative that got in his way. It was all right for these people to be killed. And I'm not being hyperbolic when I say this, because, I hope you folks have been paying attention to the January 6th Commission. And, you can hear it right there for yourself. And see, this is something else that I'm concerned about. When you hear people talk about, oh, well, that's just politics. That's the Democrats. Well, how can it be a Democratic, out to get Trump type of deal when have they had Any Democratic witnesses here yet? I haven't. I think the two black ladies, but they had no political position. They were just there as poll workers. You know, I worked the polls myself for about 2 years in a row, and that's all it is a chance to make some extra money and a chance to serve your community. That's all it is. You know, you're not going to really get anything else. Okay, I mean, trust me. Uh, Being a poll worker, it's not anybody's road to glory. Okay, you're not going to go from being a poll worker to a United States senator. I'm sorry, it doesn't work that way. So these two ladies that were there testifying, they were just there testifying about the crap that Republicans and right wingers and poor boys and the other ones basically put these poor ladies through. But all of the witnesses of fact that they've had testifying, they're all Republicans. Many of them selected by Trump himself. So please don't, this crap about, oh, well, they're just out there, get Donald. No. Donald was out there getting himself, see? And this is what we talk about when we say there is a definite lack of critical thinking on the right side, on the Republican side of the fence with the right wing. And the more that you show the ability to use critical thinking, it's like the more, oh, well, you're not part of the group. And that is, not only is it sad, but it is dangerous. And take Texas, what's happening in Texas. Now, I'm very sorry about that whole video thing. You know about that, right? Somebody released the video of that terrible day a few weeks ago when another crazy young guy took a weapon. I don't know, some people say weapons of war. You got to be careful throwing terms around like that. But I put it like this, those ARs, those are serious weapons. And like I always say, you don't need something like that to kill Bambi, okay? But this sick kid takes that weapon and he proceeded to kill 22 people, 19 of which were little kids. And what the video shows you have all these cops milling around in the hallway. And instead of whoever was senior on the scene organizing those guys and saying, okay, we're going to do a good rush and we're going to get this bastard. That didn't happen. They hung out for almost an hour. While Mr. Crazy was shooting people. And one thing, maybe somebody could tell me how or why not, why in the hell didn't somebody just inch up the hallway and throw in a couple of flashbangs? Those are the grenades. I'm quite sure you know what I'm referring to. Those are the grenades that, one of those, it has for about 3 seconds or 5 seconds, it has the power of the sun itself, right? It's like being in a room and you're in the room with the sun. and you have that tremendous amount of light, basically, so that you're blinded. And once you're blinded, once that goes off, you're going to blink, okay? Unless you are wearing some kind of special goggles or something, um, you are going to blink. It's going to make you basically back down or whatever, right? Why didn't they just throw one of those in there? And as they were rushing the guy, throw it first and then rush in. Why didn't they do that? And yeah, I see now what people are talking about, because to me it looks like it was the federal people, was it Border Patrol police or whatever? It looks like they were the ones that got the job done. I don't even know why the cops, the local cops, I don't even know why they were there. One woman went, she saved her own child. What the hell is this? I do side with the parents in that, yeah, those people should have been notified. Hey, listen, we're not going to go into the house, but we have a copy of the video of what happened that day, and we're going to play it. We just wanted to give you some heads up, and maybe you might not want your kids looking at TV around this time. You should have given those people some warning. I know if I was one of those parents and I still had small children at home, because you have to remember, a lot of those kids that were killed, unfortunately, they have little brothers and sisters, or older brothers and sisters. So when you show that video, it's not just about the children that were killed. You still have children alive that you have to think about. And, I tell you, this is one first thing, this shows the wreck that the state of Texas, that the Republicans have turned the state of Texas into. Okay, they have made a mess out of that place. And between Florida and Texas, those are two places you couldn't pay me to live in. Or I put it to you like this, you would have to pay me to live in either one of those two places. Because look what's happened. People in a place like Texas, people freeze to death. Okay? How the hell does that happen? How the hell do you freeze to death in Texas? But people do. Because they have some kind of good old boy network with the power grid. Oh, that stuff is a mess. I used to do that, not telemarketing, but like surveying. And a couple of times I had to do it for Texas. So-and-so is running and he feels blah, 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 blah. And the stuff that people have to go through to live there. Oh my God, it's just incredible. And you look at Florida, right? Miami is going to be underwater in a very short period of time. As a matter of fact, unfortunately, it's going to be in our lifetime, right? If you're below 70 years of age, and you're in relatively good shape, good physical condition, Miami is going to be, most of it's going to be underwater within your lifetime. And that comes from the party that tells you that climate change is a phony issue. Now you think about that. You can go downtown in Miami at night now, and certain areas are like blocked off because of the water constantly creeping up. And you notice people in government in Florida now, and the Republicans, they're constantly doing their best to avoid certain subjects, like the collapse of that housing complex, right? That thing just fell because of the fact that because the water has encroached so much, it has loosened the foundation of a lot of those buildings. And I'll tell you something else that's it's not just interesting, but it's damn scary. People talk nowadays a lot about sharks, right? Don't take my word for it. Check out National Geographic. You have sharks hanging out in places where they're not known to congregate, but they're congregating now, and that is again because of climate change, because of global warming, because the climate is changing, so the habitat of animals, of germs, of diseases, all that is changing. See, it's getting warmer where it's supposed to be cold. And see, people need to start thinking about these things. And see, that's another reason. You cannot let Republicans or so-called Republicans, it's like every time I say Republican nowadays, it's like I hear my father's voice saying they're full of it. Those guys ain't Republicans, they're fascists. And God's truth, that's exactly how they come across. Because things that need to be discussed in this country, they don't want to talk about. They don't want to talk about it. And you know what happens when you go through life not talking about things that make you feel uncomfortable? One day, you are just going to, boom, be confronted with the same issues that you have ducked and dodged for so long. And climate change, that should be our first, no lower than second in terms of priority. And what we need to do, we need to start looking at a new type of economic system. Because what we're doing now, it ain't working, okay? I mean, those who are doing okay, God bless them, right? Good for them. But to think that we as a society are going to be able to continue to live the way that we have been living, all right? For our economy to continue to chug along, I think that's the height of idiocy. We have to come to the realization, it needs to be said, no, America is not the greatest country in the world. And I know that upsets a lot of people. But it's called the truth. All right? And by any norm, all right, there's no logic that will, how should I say, there is no logical way that you can justify saying that America is the greatest country in the world. I'm sorry, but you can't. It's the facts are not there. Okay? And see, the greatest danger that we have and that we're facing now is that you have a political party that is dedicated to the idea that all you have to do is just keep repeating, America is the greatest country in the world. America is the greatest country in the world. America is the greatest country in the world. You remember what Hitler said? You keep on repeating the lie, and some people, they'll start to believe it. And the danger of that is that if you keep on believing that you don't have a problem, hey, them problems are going to catch up to you whether you like it or not. And see, that's what we're facing in this country now, all right? Don't get me wrong. I think that Joe Biden, he came in at the right time. He is basically what the country needed in 2020. Okay, but as we go further in the 21st century, we have to ask ourselves: does Joe, I, you know, I really like the guy. I always have. Um, I think he's made some mistakes over the years, but he's a decent enough guy. Um, and he is not a vengeful, off of all their heads. He's not. That's not him, and that's a good thing. But what bothers me about Joe Biden is the fact that he wants. I think his problem is that he is looking for something that doesn't exist anymore. And I tell you what I mean by that. Joe, in his mind, it's 1992, right? And him and McConnell can be that after the day is over, they can head back to their favorite watering hole and sit down and drink together and try and come up with different ideas, different plans. That's the way it used to be, okay? Uh, Believe it or not, once upon a time in America, we actually functioned more or less as a country. We actually got things done, right? Even with civil rights, to tell you the truth. Um, that, believe me, because I remember the tail end of the 50s, just somewhat, but I remember it. And I can tell you, the 60s, everything wasn't perfect. As a matter of fact, there never is. Everything is not perfect. You've never been any place. You'll never see any place where everything is perfect. But I do remember a time in this country when things actually worked, right? Hell, we never heard of homelessness. That never became an issue until until Ronald Reagan and his crew got into the White House. And the first time I ever heard the word or term homelessness, oh God, what is that? 1982? No, 83? 83. That's the first time I remember homelessness as a word, right? And at that time, it was a big issue, especially in D.C. And that's, like I said, that's the first time I heard that expression. And things started going downhill ever since then. Reagan was in there, and I don't know. I know the Republicans like this. They used to like to say, "Well, yeah, he was a great president," but you know what's really weird? Since it shows you how these people are. With the coming of Trump, right? You notice they stopped talking less and less about Reagan. See? And see, that should have been a warning sign to the American people that there was something wrong with this Republican Party. That you had somehow, for the last 20 some odd years, they had basically opened the door to the wrong type of people. Yeah, I know, the Southern strategy with Nixon and Pat Buchanan. And yeah, we're going to get all these white male Democrats who don't like civil rights, and we're going to bring them into the Republican Party. Yeah, that did happen. And yes, if it wasn't for the Republicans in '64 and 65, we wouldn't have gotten those two civil rights bills for open public accommodations, voting rights, and what have you. The Republican Party, they did that, okay? And that was about the last one of the few decent things that they did as we go through the 60s. And before I forget, you also have to remember clean air, right? The Republicans were the ones that basically cleaned up the air. Take a place like California. California was a bitch. I don't mean to put it like that. Well, yes, I do mean to put it like that, because that's what it was. You couldn't see a damn thing on most days. It was that bad. And who gave us the Clean Air Bill? It was Richard Nixon. Yes, sir, buddy. Oh, and don't forget, OSHA, making the workplace safe, right? And also prevent discrimination on the job towards handicapped people. Yeah, man, that was the Republican Party. But unfortunately, at the same time that they were doing all of that, right, they had the problem with more and more of these right-wingers from the Democratic Party going into the Republican Party. And essentially what they did, they changed the Republican Party from a political party to something, I call it like I said, they became more and more like the, what do you want to call them, Nazis, basically, right? Because you got to remember, the Republican Party, as we're sitting here talking, the Republican Party was not a conservative party. And see, I don't think a lot of people realize that. And I know I always talk about my dad a lot, but it's true. He was a black guy, right? And he was a union man. Oh God, don't say nothing against the unions around Walter Gums. He was a shop steward. He was a middle-class black guy, right? I don't know about maybe in terms of money, because we were just like everybody else in the projects. But we had what you call middle-class values. As a matter of fact, that was the black community period, going all the way into, going into the 80s. And he was, did I mention it one time before? He was a very good acquaintance of Malcolm X. I'm not going to be one of those folks that say, well, yeah, my brother was a best buddy of Malcolm, and, my sister knew him real well and blah, blah. No, I wouldn't dare impose myself like that. But, yeah, he was a very good acquaintance of Malcolm. If they were walking, if my dad was walking down the street and Malcolm called out to him, hey, Ed, because that was, his middle name, my dad would say, Malcolm, my brother, what's up? And this guy was the district leader in the part of the home that we lived in for the Republican Party. That was the Republican Party. And people fighting for ERA, the Women's Equal Rights Amendment. Well, I think I said on one of my shows that Romney, this guy, not him, but his mom and dad, because his dad was also the governor of Michigan. And his dad and his mom were tremendous fighters for the civil rights movement and for the ERA and for the right for a woman to have an abortion. And that was the Republican Party. And what happened at the same time, the Republicans were bringing in uh, these racists and these evangelicals, right? They were still able to do good government. That's how we have the Clean Air Bill, clean water, all this good stuff. The Roe versus Wade, the right for a woman to have have her abortion. Um, a lot of good things that the Republican Party did. But see, this Republican Party of today, right? They run away from those achievements, right? You don't hear Republicans talk about Ray. They might mention him when they're trying to make a point about a particular thing. But they don't really, our great, in other words, the same way Democrats, we talk about and we revere Harry Truman and especially FDR, right? Excuse me. The same way we talk about FDR and Harry Truman, uh, Republicans, they don't do that anymore. They don't praise Reagan to the rooftops. And you know why? I can tell you the biggest reason. Because Reagan, in spite of some of his racist tendencies, and you got to remember the time that Reagan grew up in, okay? But and the time that he reached full adulthood, it was a very racist country. I know some people would say it still is, but this is nowhere near 1933, 34, okay? But aside from that, Reagan was pro-immigration. He was pro-immigrant. He liked the idea of people coming across the border from Mexico and Costa Rica and coming into the United States and finding work and, raising families here and what have you. And see, that's why they don't talk about Reagan too tough anymore in the Republican Party. They don't talk about the fact that between Bush Sr. and who else was there? Bush Sr. and we have Bush Sr. Bush Jr. didn't do that much, but his dad sure did with the fighting to have women's sports be treated equally in universities. That was George Bush Sr. who did that. And as I was saying, with the equality of treatment for handicapped people whenever possible. So the Republicans, they do have a lot. They do have some things to be proud of and to stand up on. But see, the problem is that the people that you have basically calling the shots in the Republican Party now, they're not really Republicans. These are people that have nothing but contempt for our Constitution, see? And that's what makes them so dangerous. I would be willing to bet you that if George Bush Sr. knew how Clarence Thomas was going to turn out, I bet you, I would bet money. He would have never appointed, Clarence Thomas to the Supreme Court. It would have never happened. Come on, George Bush is the guy, like I said, the clean air, right? Him, Nixon, these people were in favor of a government that actually did things that helped the people. Now, of course, especially with Nixon, they had their streak of racism, okay, but they weren't monsters. And I know about Watergate, but with Nixon, that was more or less, that wasn't a constant thing. Like if you're going to compare Nixon with Trump, right? And see, that's why this Republican Party of today, who are their heroes? They really don't have any. Because their true heroes, they have basically taken and they put them up on the shelf somewhere. And they will only bring them out if it's absolutely necessary. Because unfortunately, what they did when they opened the door as wide as they did, they scraped the bottom of the barrel, unfortunately, in many cases. And see, that's just something to think about. What happened? What has happened here in America? And it's not just, oh, well, he just gets off on attacking Republicans. No, I'm telling what I'm trying to do, I'm trying to show you the history and how this country got to the spot where we're in now, where you have a small minority. I mean, it looked large because of the fact they were the only ones there on that January 6th. But how did we get to that point? Well, that's a large part of the reason. The Republican Party, because you have people basically masquerading today as Republicans. And what they really are, they are fascists. These are people just like that governor there in Florida. He hangs out with, what, Ku Klux Klan and Oath Keepers and poor boys and things of that nature. We found that out the last time he ran for election. And see, that's what's happened to America, because Republicans, when's the last time they won an election? And when I say won, I mean without the help of the Electoral College. They're not a popular party. People don't care for them. And you know what? They don't really give a damn. And that's another part of the problem. Because you can't, how can you run a government in a democracy where the majority of the people think that you're no good? And that's the problem that the Republicans have. And that's why, at this point in our history, it is too dangerous to let these people have any kind of power. Seriously, you can't do it, because now fascism, right, dictatorship, that's part of the Republican, that has become part of the Republican DNA. We don't care what you like. Well, hell, the whole thing about being a democracy is the fact that people vote for the people and the ideas that they like or dislike. That's why it's called a democracy. And even if you want to call it a democratic republic, still the same thing. And that's why this country is in the shape that it's in. Because the things that people need and want, the things, especially talk about the white working class, that they need, the Republicans, it's not that they can't produce it, it's that they don't want to. Because apparently the people that they get their money from, they don't want to see that happen. So since the Republicans know that they have nothing to offer working people in America, people of any color or background, what they do, they work upon division and hatred, and basically making one group hate the other groups. Well, yeah, hate Hispanics, hate blacks, hate Jews. And that's what they throw out to the crowds. Believe me, the Republican Party has no idea when they talk about the problems that we're having with the economy. They have no freaking idea of anything to help working class, the majority of Americans. So they're going to sit up and they're going to, catcall Joe Biden, but then ask him what their solutions are. Like the senator from Florida. His idea is to raise taxes on working class people. I'm serious. He came out and said that. You don't hear him talking about it now because that was like a slip of the tongue. But that's how these people feel. They have just as much contempt for white working class people as they have for black folks. But it's just like down, in the old South. The old South is the new South now, and that is that you basically have white folks feel that it's okay for them to put their neck on the blacks and not look at what the Republican Party is doing to them. See, that's what got so many young white men to die like flies in the Civil War to maintain something called slavery, which was of no benefit to them whatsoever. But they have been schooled and say, yeah, you have to keep these dark people down. And this today Republican, they're playing the same old song. They have thrown away their Abraham Lincoln suit, and they have basically taken up the cause of the stars and bars, because in their minds that's the only way that they can maintain power. They have to keep various groups in this country at each other's throats. And if you know that, when you realize that, you will realize just what the problems or why this country is in the shape in terms of hate, gun violence, the hatred of the poor boys, the Klan, the Oath Keepers. That's what it's all about. And when you understand that, when you understand that that is the problem, then we can go about correcting the problem. Listen, thank you very much for bringing me into your home, and we'll talk again next week, same time, same channel, same place. Listen, you take care of yourselves. Watch out for that heat now, because it's bad out there. Stay inside, get under the air conditioner, and look out for each other. Be good to each other. Take care.